Whoa, 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 hands off the merchandise. Unless you're into that kind of thing. Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to the Den of the Drake. Other dragons hoard gold, while I hoard internet cringe. So for today's video, I think it'd be best if we had a change of scenery. It just gets so cramped in this little pocket dimension, and I just want to... Alright, Drake, we're all packed. You can stop lying to them now. Nature. Sometimes you just gotta get away from it all. Fleeing into the wilderness because they found your illegal firework manufacturing plant isn't exactly a vacation, Drake. Aw, come on, don't be so dramatic. I thought you kobolds were bred to be like tiny little pack mules. That's not... what the hell did you put in this thing? Well, that's a stupid question. I prepared for our camping trip by packing a year's worth of boxes from Bespoke Post. Bespoke Post is a monthly membership club delivering awesome boxes of top-shelf goods from under-the-radar brands. It's free to join, and you could skip a month or cancel anytime. Every month, they introduce members to new types of outdoor gear, barware, home and kitchen goods, clothing, and more, all based on a preference quiz that I filled out. Okay, what were your preferences? Alcohol, swag, and objects I can use irresponsibly. Check this out. Bespoke Post sent me their slash box, and inside it was a frickin' sword! Actually, that's a Japanese nada. It's a multi-purpose cleaver used for clearing vegetation. Fuck off, weeb. It's a sword. Oh my god, is that a bear? Why aren't you freaking out right now? Well, one, I'm a literal dragon, so I know it's gonna try to eat you first. And two, I'm the one with the sword. It's a Japanese... forget it. So you're telling me that we got no food, no water, no camping supplies, and no way to defend ourselves from wild animals? Yeah, in hindsight, I probably should have used Bespoke Post's preview feature to decide exactly what was going to be in these boxes. You see, Larry, with Bespoke Post, it's easy to not only get introduced to new gear, but you can also pick and choose your boxes. You can even skip a month entirely for no charge. You only have to pay for what you want. Come on, Drake, every box has around $70 worth of stuff, right? There's gotta be something in one of these boxes that can save us. And can you believe that I got them for only a fraction of that cost? Got it! Wait, what the hell is this? Oh, that's the smoked box. I brought it so we can add some smoky flavor to our whiskey. You made me carry a cocktail smoker all the way out here?
Yo, y'all got whiskey up in here?
Wait a minute, I know that bear. Bear Bard, quit stealing our stuff!
Hey boo boo, what it do? It's the Bear Bard, how is you? Drakathan! Man, I was just looking to stop some forest fires, but if y'all got a handle, I'm down to party.
Oh man, that was some smoky whiskey. Larry? Bear Bard? Ah, son of a bitch! Themed boxes for those who give a damn. To get 20% off your first box, click the link in the description and enter DOTD20 at checkout. Or go to bespokepost.com/DOTD20. That's bespokepost.com/DOTD20. Well, that'll teach me to trust a grizzly who looks like he's coming from a Renaissance fair. Whatever you do, don't go to his channel and subscribe. That would just piss me off. Well, while I plan a rescue mission for Larry, how about we go ahead and get into this week's story? The story I have for you today stars a player. Wait, did I say player? I meant Redditor, who thought that the r/RPGHorrorstories subreddit was an outlet for their creative writing. Yes, dear listener, by popular demand, we are purposefully reviewing a story that is so fake that it becomes the horror story itself. Trust me, this shit could be satire. Now, without any further delay, let's go ahead and dive right into the horrifying world of r/RPGHorrorstories. Enjoy. This week's story is told by an anonymous user because I don't want any of you dummies harassing this person, and is titled D&D Neckbeard Argues Historic Accuracy with a 10-Year Reenactment Veteran. and loses. A while ago, I DM'd a D&D 5e one-shot for beginners at a small local convention. I had a table and a time slot set and advertised that it was for beginners only, for me to train my DMing skills. At starting time, I was greeted by 5 eager players. I asked which of them had prior RPG experience as an opening question. 2 of my players had played 1 or 2 sessions of D&D or some other system before, but then a greasy, smug neckbeard raised his hand. Neckbeard: "Yeah, I've been playing for a few years now." Me, pointing over to the next table: "Okay, but this is a beginner's table. The advanced player's table is right over there." Neckbeard: "I wasn't allowed at the advanced table, and I could help the others with character creation." Having another more experienced player to help the noobs create characters will take that burden off of my shoulders, I thought. Though in hindsight, him not being welcome at the advanced table was a red flag. And as we say over here, using hindsight, you will only end up looking down a cow's ass. The neckbeard took the complete D&D virgins under his wing. A quiet weeby girl and her goofy hipster himbo boyfriend. I did a quick overview of the system, covering the basics like stats, races, classes, background, skills, and told the players to use the quick character creation options and standard array. Player's handbook only. I also told the players that we'd be playing in a nondescript late medieval European setting, all of them starting off in their home village for party cohesion's sake. During character creation, I heard the neckbeard saying to the weeb girl, Neckbeard: "No, you can't play a cat girl ninja. Tabaxis aren't in the PHB." Me, interrupting the neckbeard: "Well, you can take the halfling stat block and reflavor it to be a neckgen, as it were. As for class, if you want to be a ninja-like, you can either take a rogue, which is basically a medieval burglar, or assassin, or a monk, which is basically a Shaolin monk using magical kung fu." The weeb girl's eyes lit up at hearing magical kung fu monk, but dimmed as the neckbeard interrupted. Neckbeard: "I'm already playing a rogue, and kung fu monks are not historically accurate. Also, there weren't any Japanese in medieval Europe." Me: "Well, the Knights Templar and Knights Hospitaller were militant monastic orders, so fighting monks were pretty common back then. Also, this is a fantasy setting. I don't care what they want to play. Just reflavor the halfling stat block and be done with it." The neckbeard shrugged in an irritated fashion, but continued character creation with the pair. The himbo was more in it for his girlfriend and didn't really take the game too seriously. His character pitch? A barbarian warrior princess like Xena or Red Sonja, with a big axe and dressed in a skimpy chainmail bikini. Neckbeard to the himbo: "You can't play a female barbarian. We're playing in a medieval setting, so your barbarian would have been a Viking, and Vikings were all men." Me, losing my patience with the neckbeard: "Dude, again, this is a fantasy setting loosely based on late medieval Europe. If we'd be literally playing in that period, the Scandinavian peoples would have all been converted to Christianity, and there'd be no Vikings at all." Neckbeard: "Oh yeah? Well, what the hell do you know?" A little background about myself. I've been a medieval reenactor for over 10 years at that point. The reenactment scene is rife with know-it-alls. Ironic. And having to debate the authenticity of your historical betrayal at the drop of a hat is something that comes with the hobby. I play fantasy TTRPGs to get out of the constant non-ironic use of, "Well, actually," and having to show my historical evidence to smug ye old Brede in thy neckes all the time. So, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, this is an unconventional read, considering how I normally like the story itself to be the focus of the video. Now, I'm aware that I've developed a bit of a reputation as a wild card when it comes to whether or not I'll take an OP's side. Now, I've definitely tipped my hand from the very beginning, and you'd be correct to assume that I don't believe that any of this actually happened. And if it did, it sure as hell didn't go down like this. So, Drake, why are you bothering with a story that you think is fake? Well, think of this as my attempt to do some weed eating in my garden. r/RPGHorrorstories is where a lot of creators have set up shop. And believe it or not, I'm not under the false pretext that there aren't people who use the subreddit as a creative writing outlet. And believe it or not, I don't actually think that there's much of a problem with that. The problem arises when fake stories begin to follow a pattern, where the reader can no longer believe a word of it actually happened. And eventually, those kind of stories flood the subreddit and sink the whole ship. It happened to r/neckbeard stories, and r/entitled parents, and many, many others. For example, the entire r/entitled parent subreddit can be boiled down to a formula. Quirky protagonist has a thing. Cartoonishly spoiled brat wants the thing. Quirky protagonist says no. Kid whines to parents. Cartoonishly annoying parents yell at quirky protagonist. Quirky protagonist owns the parents with facts and logic. And then the parents have a meltdown before things return to normal and post. RPGHorrorstories has begun to develop a formula, and I want to rip that weed from the root as soon as I can. And I'm hoping this video can somewhat discourage future posters from following it and killing the subreddit. I present to you the budding RPGHorrorstories formula. Quirky protagonist meets cartoony stereotype, whether it be an incel, racist, sexist, furry, weeaboo, etc., or a neckbeard who somehow mixes them all together. Then our cartoonish antagonist causes problems in the game, and is the only source of conflict because, of course, ROP, who is flawless by the way, is about to step in and save the party by owning the antagonist in a scene that leads to our antagonist's downfall. And then everyone celebrates OP's triumph over evil. Look, if you're gonna write a long-ass fake story, at least make it entertaining in a way that breaks the mold. I'll go into a much more in-depth analysis of this particular story, along with the full warning signs of a fake story at the end. That is where the meat and potatoes are gonna be, so stick around. But in the meantime, I know 3 things for certain. My dad is not coming back with the milk. A certain man whose name rhymes with Joffrey Mr. Bean did not Control-Alt-Delete himself. F you, Susan. And terminal Redditors will do anything for internet karma. So, like the wary, cynical mercenary I portray, I sighed, donned my war gear, and went into battle. Me, to the neckbeard. So, you like being historically accurate? Neckbeard. Yeah, well. Me, cutting him off. Describe your character. Neckbeard. What? Me. Describe what your character looks like. Neckbeard. Well, I'm playing a female half-elf rogue with the urchin background. She's wearing a dark black studded leather armor, a black cloak with a hood to hide her long black hair, and she's got a rapier belted to her waist. Me. Okay, so first of all, studded leather armor never existed. That's a misinterpretation by the original D&D creators of what they call the coat of plates found at the Battle of Visby of 1361, Sweden. The most prevalent armor worn by commoners would have been a gambeson, a thick pleated coat equivalent to padded armor. It's either that, or you'd have to go straight to chainmail. Neckbeard. But padded armor has such a low AC bonus, and chain armor will ruin my stealth rolls. Me, cutting him off again. Secondly, black clothing was affordable only for the wealthy nobility. The cloth would require many repeated baths of the rare blue woad dye to color wool black, each bath upping the wool's price per foot by a lot. Also, the city guard would arrest a commoner wearing the wrong colors on suspicion of theft, flog a confession out of you, and either fine you or cut an ear off as a permanent reminder. Being generous, a street urchin like yourself would have money to buy clothes that were dyed at most once. So you'd be wearing a dirty off-white or pastel colors at best. Third, rapiers are from after the Renaissance, so those aren't allowed in a strictly medieval setting. You'd probably have a short, single-edged macer. Also, you'd have to leave any blade longer than a hand's length at the local armory, or again, you'd be arrested, flogged, and fined, or branded by the city guard. God, this guy does not shut the up. Oh, and late medieval commoner women all had their hair cropped short and wore white linen headdresses against spreading lies. So you'd want to adjust that, or you'd be mistaken for a lady of negotiable virtue, if you catch my drift. Neckbeard, but this is fantasy. Me. Oh, so first you're arguing historical accuracy, and now you're arguing that it's just fantasy. Well, it's a good thing that you have a double standard. It keeps your bike from falling over, ha? Neckbeard, but you're ruining my fun. Me, raising both of my eyebrows. And you're ruining ours. Boom, got him. Then the Neckbeard got all his stuff together and left in a huff. There was an awkward silence at the table for a moment, as one of the other players asked, "Are you going to keep us to those historic standards?" Me, letting out a hearty belly laugh. Ha 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 ha! F*** no, this is a fantasy game! I ended up explaining my reenactment background, showing pictures, and explaining the difference between reenactment and LARP. And we didn't get to play much D&D afterwards. Oh well, you win some, you lose some. End of story. And everyone clapped. Look, dude, I don't think that people who came to play D&D at a convention are gonna want to stop their day to hear you gush about how you look in your HEMA gear. There is not a single word of truth in this story. Even the part where OP says they don't do LARPing, because that's exactly what this entire story is. There's a good amount of stuff to indicate that this story is bogus, or at least super exaggerated, which can easily be applied to other posts to identify them as fake. The first is that each person is written as if OP was describing them for a book. The weeby quiet girl. The goofy hipster himbo. The greasy neckbeard. It's because OP knows that these people don't exist, and frankly has to paint an image in their own mind as much as they need to paint one in ours. Plus, they're under the assumption that unique characters lead to a better story, which is true in works of fiction. The second is that the OP is a damn Mary Sue who knows exactly what to say at all times. It's easy to write a cringy self-insert when the story is about you and you have a cringy personality. Plus, none of the characters in this story act like they have a brain that functions above a 3rd grade level, which is super easy to write when you don't know how people work. While OP thinks that they're the most likable badass who saves these poor, defenseless newbies from a cartoon neckbeard, we read the exact same words that OP writes, and immediately pin him as an insufferable know-it-all. And then we gotta suffer the cognitive dissonance that results from the other people in this story regarding OP as the badass he thinks he is, and we know him not to be. Plus, the last part where OP expects you to believe that these people who went to a convention to play D&D gave up playing D&D so they can listen to OP give a presentation on the differences between reenactment and LARP? Best case scenario, this is 100% fake. The worst case scenario is that OP wasted these people's time and money. Here's a good rule of thumb. Random strangers do not give a shit about your hobbies beyond a few sentences. Finally, and most glaringly of all, is that this story has a gotcha moment. A gotcha moment is when our protagonist leaves their opponent completely stunned, with absolutely no rebuttal where they have no choice but to accept their defeat. To everyone who has ever encountered a person like this, I want you to answer a question. Have they ever admitted defeat to your facts and logic in an argument? Or do they double down while screaming about statistics while shoving their phone in your face trying to show you a Ben Shapiro video? This kind of gotcha moment only happens in conversations that you come up with in the shower. I mean, look at how the neckbeard here sets up OP's perfect volleyball spike. Kung Fu monks weren't historically accurate. You can't play a female barbarian. All Vikings were men. And then not even a paragraph later, But, this is fantasy. You're ruining my fun. And then OP totally owns the neckbeard with a badass one-liner before the neckbeard is banished into the abyss. F off. And the last nail in the coffin for this post? OP's story is only as old as OP's account. So yeah, I think it's a very safe bet to believe that most of, if not all of this story is complete bullshit. But why is it a big deal? Well, like I said before, dumbass stories like this one kill interest in subreddits. Now, I have no problem with fake stories that are fun to read. I mean, maybe you can close your eyes and pretend like it actually did happen. There are people out there who have both interesting lives and a Reddit account. It's like seeing a unicorn, but every once in a while someone will staple an ice cream cone to a horse. But again, what about this particular story pisses me off enough that I wanted to make a whole video about it? Well, let me share with you the worst part about this story, dear listener. This story has 1.7k upvotes and has won the Helpful Award, the Wholesome Award, and 2 Silver Awards. Yeah, my channel's whole gimmick is that I hoard cringe. And this is the type of cringe that would make Grimy blush. I need a palate cleanser. How about we go ahead and end on a high note with this week's Gallery of the Drake. This week's fan art comes from viewer Straw Baby Mod and depicts the Drake long before his little brain could even grasp the concept of what cringe was. Yeah, it was all downhill from here.
Daddy, what is cringe?
My dear boy, you are cringe. Martha, explain to the boy what cringe is. I'm off to the store to get milk or cigarettes or whatever the fuck. I'll see you both in hell.
Cringe.
Thank you again, Straw Baby Mod, for submitting your art. If you want to see your artwork featured in Gallery of the Drake, be sure to send it to the email in my About section. Fan art is my favorite part of doing YouTube, and it means the world to me that I can inspire artists like you to create artwork like this. With the story over and artwork displayed, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you feel like supporting the channel further, my Patreon and merchandise links are in the description. I would like to thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you next time in the Den of the Drake.